look at the musical only as a work of art in its own right rather than one of the many versions of the story of the Phantom of the Opera. So the main difference, I would say, from the novel is that the Phantom does not have a name. In the novel and in most other versions, he actually does have a name. He doesn't have a surname, so this makes him quite similar to other Gothic characters, like Heathcliff, for example, who doesn't have a surname, who just has the first name. With the Phantom, it's a similar story. He has the first name of Eric, he doesn't have the surname. In Andrew Lloyd Webber's version, he doesn't have even that. He is called the Phantom of the Opera, he is called the Angel of Music, but he's never called by his given name. And Christine, who knows him very well, uh, doesn't even bother to ask him, like, okay, what's your name? I think this is a deliberate choice to make the Phantom more gothic, more, I would say, archetypal, and even perhaps mythological than a human character. Because this is a gothic story with no supernatural elements. Of course, there is the phantom, like the ghost, in the title, but if you look at the story, there is nothing supernatural happening. Some people believe that the opera house is haunted. It's not, it's just a clever trick by a human character who has his backstory, who has his name, who has his troubled life and tragic childhood. All that is really reduced in the Andrew Lloyd Webber version. Another thing which is only hinted and very important in some other versions of this story is the Persian subplot. In the novel and in some versions of this story, Eric the Phantom has traveled extensively in his youth, and the most important adventures happened to him in Persia at the court of the Shah of Persia. There was even a character in the novel called the Persian, and given other names in other versions of the story, who became a kind of frenemy, a friend, enemy, policeman. In different versions, in some versions, even the brother of the Phantom himself, but somebody who relates to his past, who relates to his history. What you have in the Andrew Lloyd Webber version is only the musical box in the shape of the barrel organ attached the figure of the monkey in Persian robes playing the cymbals. That's it. And why the Phantom has this musical box, why the monkey is wearing Persian robes, it's never really disclosed. It's used more as a symbol. It could be the symbol of his tragic childhood. It could be the symbol of his loneliness. There is a moment during the masquerade ball when one of the characters dress up as this monkey. So it comes alive as if symbolically for the moment of the masquerade. What happens here is a rather interesting and well executed form of the musical, which is based on the reminiscences of what could be really Raoul de Chagny, because he seems to be the last survivor. And we have the prologue with the auction, and old Raoul remembers the time when all these dramatic events happened. So we have like the introduction, putting everything in the bracket. The other thing is that the bracket is never closed, so we do not have the closing element, which should be good, but well, uh, nothing is perfect. But then what we have is the work of the opera house itself, staging two shows and doing, or staging even three shows, and doing two rehearsals. And if you are interested in opera as a genre, there are a lot of very clever nods and jokes and homages paid by Lloyd Webber to different styles of the opera. So Hannibal, they are all fictitious. They are not real operas. They are not real composers. So the composer of Hannibal never existed, and Hannibal opera never existed. But it's very much in the style of the French Grand Opera, which is an interesting thing. It's very pompous. It's very heavy on the scenery. So it might be like a little inside joke on the mega musical trend itself. So we have the rehearsal, and then the staging when Christine takes over the role of Carlotta, the leading diva. And now we have first the first contrast, the first duality of the Phantom of the Opera, because this is the musical based on dualities. And I think the most important symbol of the whole show is not the mask, it is the mirror. And we have the characters showed in distorted mirrors. And the first such mirror is the mirror between Christine and Carlotta, the reigning diva, the great prima donna, who cannot sing, who is ludicrous, who is ugly, who cannot act, who is just an old school uh, craftswoman. She's not even an artist. She is just somebody who's been given the position. We do not really know why. She seems to lack talent. She only has the ego. And Christine, who is the new, fresh ingenue, so the debutante, the beginner in the art of singing, uh, who may or may not become the next prima donna, but if she does that, she will only become the prima donna because of her lessons with the Phantom. And if you look at the way that Christine was called in her childhood, this is something that Raoul remembers because he knew her when they were children. It's Little Lottie. It's actually taken from the original novel, and everybody wonders like, why Lottie? Why not Christy, or whatever? And Lottie sounds a lot more like Carlotta rather than Christine. There are different stories about that, but for the sake of the musical, we can actually assume that it's an allusion to the name of Carlotta. So Carlotta is like Christine without the Phantom. 20 years later, um, if you allow a malicious comment, this is perhaps what, in my opinion, happened to Sarah Brightman. She should be singing Carlotta now. If she had a little bit less ego, she should be singing Carlotta now. But so we have this first mirror. And then we have the great mirror scene with the Phantom. So the two central characters of this musical first talks through the mirror, then Christine actually goes through the mirror into the realm of the Phantom. So we have the mirrored images of the world of light, the world of theater, the world of spectacle of the day of Christine, and the world of the music of the night of the Phantom. So the two, I would say, corresponding worlds, but the worlds that are very different. So if you look at the way that the relationship between the Phantom and Christine is played out, it is a relationship based on this mirror image. In a way, they are one person. So you might say that the Phantom himself is the evocation of Christine's ambition. She is the embodiment of her talent, of her will to become a great singer. Um, in a way, for him, she is his more vulnerable side. She is his hope for redemption, his hope for love. But yes, well, I would say that's the reason why she faints. At the end of this scene, when the Phantom has led Christine to his underground domain, she finds a mirror, and in the mirror there is a doll dressed in the wedding gown. So she looks at this doll and she faints. And I was wondering, like, why did she faint? And I think the reason she fainted is that she realizes that actually the Phantom is part of herself. And accepting the Phantom, so becoming the bride of the Phantom, is accepting this monstrous, in the very 19th century sense, monstrous side of herself. So becoming an artist, becoming an independent creator rather than a typical conventional woman whose main function is in life is to be a wife and mother. So this is the second mirror, and then we have, of course, the other operas. We have the Il Muto, which is a Mozart-style opera, the 18th century comical opera. It's very much based on the Marriage of Figaro. There is also a character in the Marriage of Figaro of a boy who dresses as a girl, who dresses as a boy, who dresses as a girl. It's not a mute part. It's a great opera, especially for beginners. And actually, I must say it that for once, the Phantom of the Opera really sparked my interest in the opera as a genre. And now I'm, 20 years on or more, I'm an avid opera lover, and I've seen so many real operas because I wanted to see what inspired the Phantom of the Opera. So, yes, if you are interested, I strongly suggest you look up the Marriage of Figaro. And then we have Don Juan Triumphant, a very interesting thing. So, the opera of the Phantom, the opera written by the Phantom. And it is something that other characters cannot understand. During the rehearsal, they just grumble. They cannot understand the music. They think it's stupid. They think it's gibberish. This is what they say. And in fact, I think the idea was that it was supposed to be so innovative and so modern, like some operas from the 20th century, like Shostakovich or something like that. The talent of the Phantom exceeds the 19th century. It just is like two generations before its time. I'm not sure it really worked in Lloyd Webber's rendition. If you read my article, I actually quote a letter he got from one of the members of the audience, a woman who wrote, "If the Phantom is supposed to be such a brilliant composer, why does he write such a horrible music?" Oh well. Especially the fragments that are rehearsed seem quite difficult, although the duet, the point of no return, so the duet from Don Juan that the Phantom writes for Christine and eventually he sings with Christine on stage is in the, I would say, good Andrew Lloyd Webber style, which is classical inspired but not really very difficult to understand. So we have quite a lot of things that come in pairs, that come in twos. We have two rehearsals, we have two unmaskings, which are very important, and of course, that's all boils down to the grand finale, which is very operatic and dramatic. And I will give you some links to to the reviews of the Phantom and reviews, especially of this scene, which are quite interesting. So there are more musicals that are inspired by the opera, and if you look at, I don't know, Moulin Rouge, which is inspired by Verdi's La Traviata, or if you look at Miss Saigon, which is inspired by Puccini's Madame Butterfly, they are reworking the plots of these operas. But this one is even more clever because it does not rework any particular plot, but it uses a lot of hints and a lot of allusions to different operatic composers and operatic styles and elements of operatic plots, like this dramatic final confrontation. We move on.